One of the reasons why I was praying this morning, I saw a vision about Ghana. The country has been very good. Recently, the country has been very good. Economy stabilized, city stabilized, people's businesses are working. Let us be frank. Things that people lost within the previous government have been restored by various companies. I'm not trying to be political, I'm trying to be a real person. If Ghanaian preachers are going to be very real, politicians will stop fooling us. But there is a young guy in your church that gives millions of dollars and cities doing fundraising, and that same person is in the government stealing money. But you can't say it. Why? Because he's your church member and he has been bringing the money to you. And he's causing financial loss to the state. When we talk about corruption, we only look at one president or one human being. But go to the secondary schools and see by yourself. You will discover that the free SHS and things that the government has made it free, they are headmasters stealing money. They are accountants taking money from people. They are people actually walking through back doors, taking millions of cedis from people just to allow other people to come to school that they didn't get. There are school authorities that are selling books that belongs to the government. When we talk about corruption, we only look at policemen. But I've said it several times that if there are people that must be giving money on the road, it's supposed to be policemen. When I meet the police, I give them money. Not because I don't have license. No, I have. Listen, if you don't learn how to be nice, you are going to be a fool when you are dying. So, police, most of them are not having armors. Most of them are not having ammunition. Most of them are not having guns. They are not having anything. Now, when you go forward and there's an armed robbery attack, they can choose not to come. I saw in my vision this dawn, I saw too much noise in the country. From January up to March, there is going to be too much noise in Ghana. And this noise that is going to happen in the country is because of just one political party. Listen, the truth of the matter is, Kennedy Agyapong is supposed to be the flag bearer of the MPP. When you enter the realms of the supernatural, he has already won. He is the next chosen flag bearer for the MPP. But I saw in my vision, listen, this vision is real. How I'm saying, that's how it will happen. I saw in my vision that these MPP people have programmed a machine. They have programmed a system. They have already programmed it down. What is going to happen is that by the time they will finish counting all the figures, whilst they are counting figures that are supposed to be going to Kennedy Agyapong will be going to Baum. Immediately I saw war. This fight I'm seeing is not just exchange of words. I saw leaders beating themselves with their hand. This one hit blow. That person will hit blow. And then the party was divided into two. Immediately, I saw two elephants moving. Kennedy Agyapong was sitting on one. Bawumia was sitting on one. Then I saw that the elephant Kennedy Agyapong was sitting on has turned into a lion. There is a law in the MPP party that they have written down that they have. Kennedy Agyapong is about to cancel it. A lot of these people, you call them our brothers, with guns, a knife. When you are praying, pray for your country. It is not every time the president is doing something wrong. When Yoko started arresting people, has it gone for Akufo-Addo? But once their government was about to end, Ken Ofori-Atta fled from Ghana. Up to now, he's not back. No armed robber that I have ever seen in the world that rob without a gun than Ken Ofori-Atta. You don't like my preaching, and so what? Pastors, we are faking. Be bold a little bit to face these guys. The pastor is not able to talk about that thief who is called a politician in his church, who is bringing government money to come and sow seed in the church, because the pastor himself is a thief. When he collects church offering, no other end of it. Jesus never spoke about fornication being the highest sin. He said money is the root of all evil. Not fornication, money. Pastors that poor people come to church to give offering on the altar. Some of them will speak on their money with their problems on the altar, and they carry. That's why they call some of the churches one-man churches, because he will carry the money and he'll be the one to control it. The very day I start using church offering for myself, I have deviated. You people can take the microphone for me. This building is not for me. Everything we see in this area, we have registered it in the name of the church.